Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go. Hey, Enchilada Nation, excited to be having a conversation today around something that I think is really important and very timely right now. This is a 4-part series on your ability to execute. I think we've all spent a lot of time putting together our goals. We're good at outlining what those looks like. In fact, we're all pretty good about getting motivated, finding our sources of motivation, whether that comes through reading or podcasts or whatever that is. We create this motivation, yet we still have this gap in our ability to execute. So over the next 4 episodes, we're going to be covering the 4 disciplines of execution, which if you've read this book, this will be a great reminder. If you have not read the book, here's the 2 caveats I will tell you in regards to it. One, it's the message of the book was one of the most impactful to my career in helping me execute at a much higher level. And the caveat to that is it's not the most fun book to read. It reads like a textbook, but the message is powerful. So excited to share with you the 4 disciplines of execution. Let's go. All right, everybody, we're going to talk about discipline number 2. We just got done talking about discipline number 1, which is focusing on the wildly important goal. If you're jumping in sideways to this conversation, go back to the last episode where you'll be able to hear about discipline number 1. Discipline number 2 is acting on the lead measures. This is where we get caught up. Every single person we get up ready to get after it, ready to move. We get motivated, and there's a billion things that can be done. You can make a to-do list a mile long every single day. And I will tell you this, that everything on your to-do list is not weighted equally. Everything on your to-do list does not move the organization or move you towards your bigger goal equally. So a big part of the skill set is your ability to identify the most important things that must be done first and focus on getting those things done first. I will tell you that if you get the most important things done within your day, a lot of times, a lot of those other little things become unnecessary or get done by somebody else within your organization. However, if you take on those little fires and those little gnats first, what you're doing ultimately is making those a priority, and the bigger pieces, the most important parts of your organization are not moving forward. If you have people on your team and you've leveraged yourself, you're also teaching your people that those little menial tasks that you leverage them to do, you're training them to put those back on your plate. When those stack up on your plate, again, you cannot be the CEO and the driver forward of your organization. So it's really important to not only know what the lead measures on, but take action on those lead measures. So what is a lead measure? A lead is the thing that happens up front that we can have confidence in if that's executed. The lag measure, the wildly important goal, will happen. So the lead measure is if we can focus on the activity, the most important activity, we know the end result will show up. So let's talk a little bit about this. It's really getting clarity on what are all the things that I could be doing versus what are the things I should or must do to move the organization forward. So in the book, they talk about using a lever. Imagine that wildly important goal that we just talked through is a massive rock, and you need to move that rock forward. Well, if I just go put my shoulder into that rock, I'm not moving that rock anywhere. No matter how strong I am, that rock is not moving anywhere. However, if I understand the power of a lever, I can really have a lot more influence on moving that rock. So if I have a lever and I stick that lever underneath the rock, there's one other really important piece to the puzzle, which is the fulcrum. The fulcrum tends to be that lever point where you're going to pivot that lever against to move that rock. Now, the position, the length of the lever and the position of the fulcrum become really important. If you have a very long lever and you move the fulcrum really close to you, there really isn't a lot of leverage to be applied against the wildly important goal. However, if you've moved that fulcrum up right next to the wildly important goal and stick a long lever under there, now you have a lot of leverage. All of a sudden, your power becomes significantly more than if you were trying to move that rock on your own. So the idea here is to understand what is the best way to structure that fulcrum and lever that I can have the biggest influence on moving that wildly important goal. So there's 2 key points to this. Number one is the lead measure that you've identified, is it predictable? Meaning that you know without a fact that if you do that activity, it's going to result in moving the organization forward. For example, one of the biggest problems that a lot of entrepreneurs have is lead generation. But it is a fact, a proven fact, the data is there, that if you have enough conversations and make enough phone calls and connect with enough people, regardless of your skill set and your value proposition, honestly, you're going to close more deals than somebody that's not having that number of conversations. Now, obviously, your skill set will increase with your ability to talk to people and convert those leads over time, but I will take someone with a work ethic willing to do the work and get after it over somebody that's a really good talker or closer up front, because I know somebody that's willing to do the activity, they might lose a few more people over time, but their skill set's going to increase, but they're going to do the lead measure. We know that having that conversation and picking up the phone is an absolute lead measure that is going to result in somebody in your database. The database, someone inside your database, if you nurture it appropriately, eventually is going to convert to an appointment. That appointment, if you deliver your value proposition appropriately, is going to convert to a contract. If you execute and perform the value, the services provided in that contract, it's going to result in a sell. So ultimately, the end game is we want to earn the money, but it's not about getting the contract. It's about creating the relationship and connecting with the person up front in that lead generation piece. So this would be a scenario in which we know an absolute predictable lead measure would be that conversation. The next layer of filter we have to go through to make sure we've identified the right lead measure is asking ourselves the question, is it influenceable? Like, can I control it? So notice right after the lead generation was putting people in my database, so it would be really easy for us to say, oh, well, the lead measure is adding 500 people to my database. Well, adding people to your database, there's a step that has to happen before that. I can't just show up today and start typing people's names into my database. I've got to go find and create the person to get in there. So can I influence it? I can't influence people to get inside my database without first having a conversation with them. So regardless of anything else going on in the world, could I commit to having 10 conversations regarding my services and my businesses every single day? Like, worst case scenario, I could go sit in front of the local convenience store and stop people as they go in. I absolutely could keep that commitment with myself if I knew it was predictable and influenceable and tied directly to my goal. Now, I will say this, all leads aren't created equally, so if I'm smart, I'm going to use my time appropriately to have those conversations with the highest probability lead first. But in the end, if those high probability leads aren't panning out, or I can't find those people to talk to, there are other people I could go find. So ultimately, this becomes discipline number 2, is identifying the absolute lead measure that is influenceable and predictable, and nothing else matters outside of that. Now I got to just act on that. That becomes my most important thing every single day, is am I acting on the lead measure? So up to this point, we've talked about discipline number 1, which is focus on your wildly important goal. Discipline number 2 is identifying and acting on that lead measure.